This is Callie. How are you? I'm wearing my Pappy's hat today because, well, actually, no, this is my son's hat. It's tiny for my head, but my Pappy was a sailor, and I'm a sailor's granddaughter. Red sky at night, sailor's delight. Red sky in the morning, sailor's morning. So, my grandfather was lovely. I brought some pictures for you guys to see. So, this is Pap. Obviously home from war, working on the car. So he had a big garage that fit a lot of cars and steps that went down that you could stand, underneath. And then this was one of my early birthdays. I don't know if you can see that. So sweet with my grandparents. So yesterday would have been my grandfather's 100th birthday. In some ways, it feels like he was just here. And in other ways, it feels like a long time. My grandfather's name was, I'm getting emotional. My grandfather's name was Harvey, Harvey McClelland, and I adored him. And I can honestly say that so many people, his funeral service was like legendary. The line went around the block so many times. And one of my close friends, Troy, took me and drove everybody around and was so lovely. And it was cold. It was February when he died, snowy. And when my brother didn't come for a really long time. And so finally, hours after like people coming in the door, I said to my brother, where have you been? And he said, I couldn't, he said, Cal, the line goes around the block 2 or 3 times. So I guess that says about it all, right? He was a teetotaler, which is a word that most people don't even know these days. He loved his grandkids. We each had a bike cobbled together with our names on it, and we all grew up swimming in the river and getting our toes pinched on Red Dog Stone. So it was a really idyllic childhood. And so what I want to talk to you about is coming to terms with the way that we each have dealt with failure and setbacks recently, and how we can rebuild ourselves going forward. I am not a perfect person. No one that I know is a perfect person. We all make mistakes. We say the wrong thing. We get angry. And so, what I want to talk to you a little bit about is the reality of the dichotomy that we're living in today. Have a hook, grab somebody's attention. You only have 3 seconds. Build a relationship, add depth, add emotionality to that relationship. So everything that we're doing has this kind of two-way street that we're going on. It's the same with conversation and momentum. So what I want you to think about as a World War II master's historian, I am so excited to be getting back to my writing. My thesis was the Cabinet War Wives, and I was talking about the women on the home front. So if you've ever seen my fun logo of Homefront Diary, it's about the women like my grandmother, who was younger than Pappy. So my grandfather went in when he was 15. He was training with Jack Dempsey, who and the photograph of Jack Dempsey to my father, the prize fighter, Jack Dempsey, who was, by all accounts, one of the loveliest people in the world. Sat on their dresser until Harvey died, and then until my grandmother Pleasant passed away as well. And they really inspired me because, very similar to our friend today, 97-year-old Frank Wall Jr., who with the World War II Foundation, I did my first documentary with on N4. Frank's journey on the USS San Marcos, very similar to Frank, who is the same age as my grandmother, Pleasant. These young kids went to war, and then when they came back, they had a pretty brutal adjustment. Frank and Pap had, I think, kind of a similar upbringing, My grandfather did his training in Rome, New York. His dad and that side of the family lived up in the Finger Lakes. And then with Frank, his father had only spoke Polish, as you'll see in the video in the documentary, Frank Wall with one L, Frank Wall Jr. And so both these boys were working all the time. And so when my grandfather left for the U.S. Coast Guard at 15, that was it for schooling for him. Now, he ended up being extremely successful in life, as did Frank. When Frank stayed in longer in the Navy, so he closed out, I think, at the end of 1946, he came home and had a pretty brutal adjustment. I think my pap got married and started having babies. And they were an unusual couple. We go to the assisted living facility. I've told you all about this monthly, where my mother-in-law was. She died last year. And she struggled. And I've shared this with you as well. And because she struggled, I struggled. It was her choice to be there. We had offered to have her at home. But she wanted to be there. But she couldn't bring herself to go to the dining room and to make new friends. And one of the reasons that we went last April of 2024 with the Girl Scout troop, my troop, was because I wanted to teach the kids that no matter what happens to you in life, you're going to have to roll with the punches. And if you land in a new or a different place or different situation, you're going to have to learn to make new friends. And so that's why the very first blog post I ever did on Substack was called Making Friends with Life. And I talk about the books and the things that bring me comfort and joy. And it's one of the reasons that I wrote the Native American Spirit Wheel Dream Journal, because as a gun violence survivor, as a hostage survivor, I understand, for me, that time of my life when I was a child and that happened to me is over and done with. There's no trauma left to that situation anymore. However, that spirit of resilience, that spirit of resilience, I do believe now my duty to share how we overcome those really hard times. I have friends here and that were at 9/11, in the Twin Towers, at Shanksville. So for each of us at different times in our lives, there are things that happen. And for me, I had a spiritual awakening later in life. I was in my 30s. And so if you go on Facebook and my other media channels, you'll see a whole different side of me. And that's what I call the intuitive academic. So I think one of the reasons that I write so well and I'm able to do such incredible research is because after 30 years of being in people's homes, high-end interior design, graduating from Savannah College of Art and Design, being a fine arts painter, being able to visualize somebody's interior, their home, what that means is that I can see where people want to go. I can see what's blocking them. And we do all that glorious mindset work and we release those blockages through hypnotherapy and neurolinguistic programming. And then we roll right in to what their life purpose is. And so what I've been setting up for the last year and a half, and this is something I encourage you all to do when you're reinventing yourself, is I've been learning so much. So you always have to have a Zen beginner's mind. If you had told me that I would be an expert at digital marketing, an expert at AI, an expert at Canva, this time last year, I would have said you were absolutely crazy. But I am. I've built up the most glorious team. I now own a high-level agency, and we help people develop their book and course outline, right, with AI, and then write the books themselves from a top SEO, search engine optimized outline, so that your expertise can match that of what people are looking for. So that's one of the ways that momentum carries us through when we're struggling. So, to take a step back, that World War II spirit of resilience was a team effort. And Frank talks about going into the military training camp. I think it was in New Jersey. And he talks about that they plucked him out of the crowd and realized that he had what it takes to be a radar man. Now, later in life, after Frank came home and went back to high school, went to college with a GI Bill, um, which was Anna Rosenberg. If anybody has read the books on Anna Rosenberg, and so he came back, Frank Wall, and he went into science. So they did see something in him, and they did plant that beautiful seed. And so one of the things that I think we've forgotten today is the fact that you can't go it alone. You have to use your judgment. You have to reach out, take a chance on people, create new relationships, create new friendships. You have to find common ground. You have to match up with people who have your same sense of duty and values. This is my first time having built an Inc. 5000 company in my 20s, and then multiple six and seven figure companies, family business that I've contributed to for 20 years. This is my first time creating an enterprise that is so far entirely virtual. Um, we are going to be, and I've been saying this, hosting in-person luncheons. Right now, we're starting with Washington, D.C. and New York, and I'm going to be sending the beautiful invitation to my friends. I think you can go to homefrontdiary.com/lunch or luncheons and see that invitation. But again, here's the dichotomy of life. We can't be all remote because then loneliness sets in, depression sets in, too much time with ChatGPT as our new girlfriend, our new gal pal, and just too much screen time in general, and not enough fresh air and getting out in the world time. So, I think a hybrid situation is really ideal. And if you are an entrepreneur, a young person, perhaps you've lost your job and laid off for your job, or are thinking to yourself, ugh, this is coming for me, this is coming next. What these luncheons are all about is that they are a wonderful combination of philanthropic representatives and endeavors, and they are government and corporate and entrepreneurs all coming together under the same roof to shake hands. And somebody like me, and you're saying, hey, I love doing group retreats and corporate workshops, and of course I do high-end residential interior design. I would, yes, oh my goodness, of course, let me shake your hand. And right, nobody wants to go to somebody's house or see them and not have had some kind of in-person handshake bond to begin with. And so, making friends with life for me is when I built up the largest BNI in Montgomery County. It was one of the largest in the country at the time. I think we had 35 people within 3 weeks of starting, and then passed millions and millions and millions of dollars of business. And then, starting and launching, founding a Girl Scout troop, same thing. It's the whole elementary school, and it was before we split into different troops, it was the largest in the entire Girl Scout Nation's capital. So, for each of us, that has to be baked into our business plan. And I was so happy that some of the people that I reached out from at the Heart Association and Cancer Society and other places just jumped on board. And now we're going to be talking to people that are TV stations and radio stations, because, community is still a thing. We have to be gentle with one another. So Wednesday night, because of sports, we all hopped in the car to go to the assisted living home. See, that's my son's favorite day of the month. He sits with Frank. And so we were going to be short staffed. I looked at this picture just as I said that of my grandparents. Oh my gosh, I love them so much. I was so loved. I hope you were too. I hope you were too. And so we hopped in the car. It was me driving. I have the third row seat, so I had 5 children in my car. Then there was a car behind me, and we're going big over the mountains, big over the mountains. There was a car behind me that I didn't know, and then behind, a good ways behind that, was one of my other best friends and my other co-leaders who was in a car behind us. And so as we came up over the mountain, um, heading on down, I could see a car on the horizon on the wrong side of the road. Anyways, he came at me, he came at me, he came at me. He never moved. And he wasn't passing or anything. He was just driving the wrong side of the road on a 2-lane highway. And so we came grill to grill. And then he pulled over on the wrong side of the road, so in the turning lane. And my turning lane, he was on the wrong side of the road, going the wrong way. So after that happened, luckily I always pay attention when I drive. I had all the kids in the car. After that happened, I did panic a little bit. Like, I thought, holy moly. But luckily I had glided to a stop, full speed to a full stop. And the car behind me had honored that. And then, of course, when he got back on the road, he jumped in front of my girlfriend, driving the other kids. But she's like, I didn't know where he came from. So I just want to let you know that for all of us, there's always near misses. And we're constantly reminded that life at any moment can end. And so each day has to start with gratitude. Um, One of my buddies called me. We're now going to be working together. He saw me doing my intuitive work on Facebook this weekend. And he, was talking about where he's at. And what's lovely is that I was literally able to direct him in about 5 seconds. So what I want to let you know is, if you're stuck, if you really are confused and you don't know which way to go, call me, DM me, text me. We'll set up a time to talk, and we'll get together and we'll help you find your way through. But at the end of the day, what I want to remind each of you about that beautiful home front spirit of resilience is that, when the men went to war, and the women were here, and the children and the elderly, and everybody had to pull together. And of course, a lot of women went to war as well. And I'm fascinated by them. That's my thing this year. I'm going to be reading about the nurses. I have about 10 books beside my bed, and that's by the end of 2025, those will be read. Right now, I'm refreshing myself on the Battle of the Atlantic, but I digress. When the people were at home on the home front, just like in the countries in Europe, we had to feed ourselves. And so all of a sudden, perhaps these women had never gotten on a tractor. Perhaps they'd never had to take care of putting in the crop, getting the crop out. Where I grew up, and where my grandparents were on the river, on the Monongahela, there were hundreds. Everybody had a farmette, everybody. And so they were always growing their own food. And so I think that everything that's happening in the world today, where we had this outrageous globalism, but we also had this outrageous spending and buying so much that we don't need. That's like a landfill filler. And I speak for myself when I say that, right? There's so many things that I don't need. And then the other thing is that, if I want a medicine, if I need a medicine, I pray to the Lord that I can get it here. And so I've known pharmacologists and pharmacists for the last 30 years, clients of mine, amazing people, and heard crazy stories about sending whole refrigerators over with timers to other countries so that medication could be tested. And if the timer went off like 30 minutes before it got to their house, then that was it. And it was like a $15,000 deal down the drain. Um, at the end of the day, I love people. I'm a humanitarian, and I believe in the potential of all people. And just as Japan's war in World War II was what's called a war of attrition, there was also a very biting element of racism that came up in that, where they were like, well, who does the white man think that they are? Why can they do X, Y, and Z? And so one of the reasons that I often I do my best to read about both sides of every story. And I do my best in America to always talk about our Indigenous people. The first page in my book is dedicated to talking about Indigenous people and asking for donations for them. So I just want to remind y'all that we do live in the world. And if one country is got the strictest rules on the planet regarding pollution and water quality and environmentalism, and they're setting the standard, that's lovely. Yet if there's a bunch of other ones that don't have any of that, well, then that's a problem too. Okay. So I feel that we need to rebalance and recalibrate in a lot of ways. And perhaps our recalibration involves stuff and things and what we derive meaning from. And if I'm lucky, this lady's a really tough boss, but you're going to start seeing my byline in a lot more places. I was super happy that this editor, I won't say her publication, but she's really, really good, really skilled. And I presented her with a discussion about how Americans are with their stuff, right? And really about what we choose to keep and what we don't. And you all have heard me talk about how when it's my time, I'd like an eco burial. I don't want, you know, to be preserved for the aliens when in 1,000 years' time. I don't want the waste of a $30,000 casket and funeral. I digress. But anyways, so it is time for each of us in our own value system to reevaluate how we are. And so one of the things that I'll show you Pappy again. One of the things with this darling, was that he didn't care what you put on your plate. He didn't care what you put on your plate. But boy, you better eat it. You better eat it. If you took it and you put it on your plate, then you better eat your plate clean. He did grow up hungry, and they took, it was like soap on a rope. They took a bath in the river, and I think at the end of the day they were all the better for it, because there was such a beautiful appreciation for the gift of life. So for all of you that have a World War II veteran in your family, a parent, a grandparent, this one's for you today. My grandfather was a joy. He put everybody through college. If they couldn't afford it, he made sure to get them a loan or give them the money. He fixed up the church, always volunteered. And in the family photos, you know, he's always on one knee fixing a broken toy, doing something for others. Um, my grandfather had a tragic accident when he was 59, and really his entire retirement years were lost. And so perhaps that's one of the reasons that I'm, I think, as my spouse would say, overly cautious with the kids. That there's a little bit of that doomsday in there where I'm like, just be careful with your bodies, be careful with yourself. Now, for each of us, we have that baggage. And what I want you to understand is that you're going to make mistakes. I make mistakes every day. And all we can do is try again. And work with forward positivity and momentum. Be in the noticing of the crazy dichotomy that is the world right now. Be the person that fosters agreement. For me, I really believe that I want my children to grow up knowing a Ted Kennedy, Bob Dole type friendship where opposite sides argue and get out their statistics and their fact sheets and go at it and feel passionately about what they believe in, and then come to a concise and meaningful, moderate consensus so that everyone can move forward and that some kind of progress can be made. And sometimes if you can only take 3 steps forward instead of 10, then that's what you do. So I wish for all of us, I wish for myself, a beautiful pause to take in the glory and the grace of life, to hone in on your passion and your purpose with a respectful demeanor. I'm going to put my little cap on. And to spread joy and wonder wherever you can, like sparkling dust in the air. So I love y'all, and I want to just say that we're going to get through it, and you're going to start seeing on my page all my links for getting together and talking in person and networking and lunches, and it's going to be so much fun. And also group coaching. So putting our expertise into a format, like actually writing a book. You know, you don't even have to show it to anybody if you don't want to. I mean, it's an awesome calling card. You can hand over your outline to one of my girlfriends, Ruth Klein, who is an amazing ghostwriter. But I think it's important for each of us to take a step back and reevaluate how we want to be in the world and where we're best used and in service. Because the world needs your gifts. Don't give up. The world needs you. And just like when Frank came home and there was a struggle with having to make new friends, living situation, going back to school as somebody who had been to multiple countries and all over the world and was on Japan 3 days after the fall of Japan, and had MacArthur walk by him in Tokyo, and then to have to go back to school, and, you know, in some ways kind of eat humble pie. Or my grandfather, Harvey, who didn't even have the opportunity to go back to school. He went to a trade school, Mike Rowe style, and he became an electrician. And the joke with my grandparents were like went on until the end. You know, she would say, "Oh my goodness," he would make me. He would tell everybody that he was going to have school, and then he would find broken things and tell them that they had to learn to fix it, and then I'd have to go find the parts, so that all of these people could come and fix appliances and learn how to do electrical work and wiring, which I think is so adorable and clever. And he really wanted people to be able to stand on their own feet, and he did make such a success of himself, as did Frank and his family and children. So I just want you to know that in the valleys, as my friend Mindy would say, is where the wildflowers grow. Keep your faith, keep your hope, and know that what makes you special is you, and your special gifts are needed by the world. And soon I hope I get to meet you in person at one of my luxury luncheons. Like all of you, I'm doing things differently. In years past, I was part of a beautiful group called Women of Washington. We met at the Four Seasons in Georgetown. We'll see if that's going to happen again. If not, I'm sure we'll have another luxurious location. Um, and that was women only. And this time we're going to do it differently. We're going to be co-ed. And we're going to have everybody coming together, of all stations in life, of all levels of success, of all levels of expertise and age, and from all areas and ways of being in the business world and in America. So I'm really thankful for that. We're only going to be doing 3 luxury luncheons a year, 4 for the top tier. And that's all I could handle, because if I'm going from city to city and I've got to be there and I've got to make sure that I'm remembering your name and that I know who you are and what you do and what would be a great match for you, because I love being a matchmaker and a connector, then I want to be on my toes and I want to be there 1,000% for you. So we used to do it 8 or 9 a year. We're going to just be doing 3. So you're going to want to make sure to clear your calendar and move some appointments around if the dates don't match with what's on your calendar, or send a buddy, send a friend. So anyways, I'm so excited. We're going to bring my history of successfully founding groups and fundraising back again. And we're going to turn this post-COVID malaise around. It's the art of resilience. It's making friends with life. And like this beautiful couple here, I have all their cards, their handwritten cards to this day. I was so loved. I hope you are too. If I can be that person for you, I will be. I hope you guys have a great spring break. Happy Easter, and go and do good in the world.